Oh, hello. It's Cat Shades, the heavy metal picker back here, and I am back with another video guaranteed to get me millions of views. Today we're going to go over the Basement of Death demo from Clean Flesh. You have not heard this before. Yes, there is another video mistitled as Clean Flesh Basement of Death, but that's actually the Erotic Incisions 5-song rehearsal. So, let's get right to it. I would like to begin with this video with a bit of a disclaimer. In this video, I'm going to go far back in time, way back to 1996, 1997, and my memories may not be 100% accurate. In addition, any supposed criticisms about Clean Flesh are going to be relatively minor. I've always loved Clean Flesh. So, if you're a member of Clean Flesh and you're watching this, please don't freak out if I get something wrong or maybe my interpretation of something is slightly different than yours. Between fall of 1996 and summer of 1997, I had seen Clean Flesh 3 times, all of which were in a mainly rural area of western Ohio. Clean Flesh was not all that accessible even by death metal standards, and they weren't exactly a huge live draw. When they released the 4-song CD in 1997, no one could have possibly believed that this would eventually become underground gold, routinely selling for over $400 on eBay and Discogs and all that. Now, what happened to the copy that I had? Well, one day when I was living in Dayton, Ohio, I passed out drunk in my house and somebody stole some items, and that CD was one of them. Now, does this band live up to the hype? Is there any reason the original pressing from 1997 is worth over $400? I say the hype is definitely well-deserved. Maybe I'm biased because I saw them 3 times back in the 90s and I lived through an amazing but very short period in which the underground death metal explosion happened in Western Ohio in that period of time. Now, thanks to guitarist Steve Haas. Now, he probably kept what is the only tape left of this in existence for all those years. And thanks to Burning Dogma Records for putting out this masterpiece. And in the description, I have a link to where you can hear and buy the Clean Flesh 4-song CD. You can get the Basement of Death demo. At the time of this recording, it's only available in digital format, but it should be out on CD relatively soon. Now, Burning Dogma Records right now is my favorite label. All the old demos from like Fleshgrind, Repudilation, Corpse Vomit, the old Wicked Innocence CDs, and of course Clean Flesh and so much more are out on this label. So whether you're an old man in your 40s, old woman in your 40s, and you want to relive the 1990s, or maybe you're a teenager who never got to experience the 1990s death metal scene, go check out Burning Dogma and what they have to offer right now. I hope Burning Dogma makes $1 million off of this. That guy deserves it. And at the time of this recording, yeah, Basement of Death is only out digitally as of April 2023. I was told a CD's coming soon, whatever. I've waited all these years. I can wait a couple more weeks, right? So Clean Flesh's vocals were kind of hard to stomach for a lot of people at the time. I personally always have loved the outrageous, over-the-top, inhuman sounds, particularly of Joe Wolf, the vocalist of Clean Flesh. Nowadays, this kind of vocal style is relatively common. Vocalist Joe Wolf, back then, he was very unique. Very few vocalists were doing that over-the-top, inhuman sounds. I think the most well-known person prior to Joe Wolf would have been Matty Way of Disgorge, and Joe Wolf will be the first to tell you that Matty Way of Disgorge was a huge influence on him. And Clean Flesh by no means is a Disgorge clone. Joe kind of took what Matty did and he went to a new level, added new dimensions, added new things, and improved on the pathway that Matty Way had initially carved on that kind of vocal style. I had heard that after Matty Way quit Disgorge, like I'm thinking back in 1997 or so, that Joe Wolf was offered the vocal slot, but he declined because he didn't want to move out to California to be with Disgorge. Now, I don't know if this is true or if it's a rumor. I don't know. Supposedly, there's also a video of Joe and Maddie together doing like this vocal battle. Now, if such a thing does exist, I would love to see it. All right. So Clean Flesh used a drum machine back in the mid to late 90s. Heavy metal wasn't too popular, kind of fallen out of fashion. I'm thinking around 1995. And so finding a metal drummer, particularly one who could play as fast as Clean Flesh needed, those kind of drummers were pretty few. And a handful of bands in that area were performing live with drum machines in that area of Ohio at the time. And Mortician must have been the first inspiration for all that. Now, Clean Flesh, I believe they use an Alesis SR16. I'm not 100% sure about this, but it definitely was not the Roland or Boss drum machines that all the other bands in that area of Ohio were using at the time. Other drum machines that were popular were the DR5 from Boss and the DR660 from Boss. And of course, I mentioned in another video that Mortician had used the DR550. Now, Clean Flesh is also one of these bands I would call a coulda, shoulda, woulda band. Bands that, just didn't live up to their full potential. And I think they could have done at least one full-length album. I had heard that Brian Baxter's label, Ablated Records, was going to release a Clean Flesh 16-song CD in 1998, but, needless to say, this never happened. Guitarist Rick Smith was replaced by Harold Burton, and they changed the name to Erotic Incisions. Erotic Incisions played a few shows, and they did a few rehearsal tapes, but they were broken up by the year 2000, I think. Not totally sure on the date. But the name Clean Flesh, it means a corpse that has been embalmed. In fact, they had t-shirts that said the definition of the band at the time. And I think the name Clean Flesh is pretty cool. Now, on Basement of Death, on the digital cover, you can see the old Clean Flesh logo is used due to the sharp edges, and it looks like cutting into skin. I think that kind of logo would have worked well for Erotic Incisions, but either way, I like this Clean Flesh logo and the old one as well. When the original Basement of Death cassette came out, no, I didn't get a copy. So before 2023, I had only heard these songs performed live. So that's it for the most part, I guess. Now, the first song on Basement of Death is called My Fantasy. It's a super catchy, mid-paced, somewhat slammy kind of song. It reminds me very vaguely of Godflesh and the way the drums are programmed. There's no blasting on this one. Now, I also had a cassette with 2 live songs on it. Now, it was this and Impalement of a Whore, and I'll get to Impalement of a Whore later. The live version of My Fantasy, it was in Piqua, Ohio. It had a much clearer quality than this Basement of Death demo, and Joe Wolf's vocal delivery was like that on the Clean Flesh 4-song CD. Now, on this demo, the song is not really different as far as its structure or its sound. The only thing that's really different, of course, is the vocal style. And that's one thing I noticed about this. So my memory was right after all. So with Erotic Incisions, Joe began to use his low vocal style that he used on Basement of Death. And he started using it again in Erotic Incisions and, of course, later in Heinous Killings. So then he, in addition, he used the pig squeals, and he didn't develop the Predator vocal style, or at least use it on recording until Heinous Killings. So anyhow, next song is called Inhuman Waste. Now, this was an early version of Dying in Sewage Matter. So the 2 main differences in this version are, of course, Joe's vocal style, and there's no slow part with a really cool solo in this version. I like Dying in Sewage Matter better. Guitarist Rick Smith and guitarist Steve Haas, they were always great at playing guitar solos, making really catchy riffs. Next song, Sickening Lust. I can tell a piece of this song later resurfaced in the song Clean Flesh on the 4-song CD. It also has some really sick screams on this one, a lot of blasting. You can hear the bass guitar pretty clearly on this demo. And David Geyer, his bass tone, it's very percussive. So you can hear the sound of the pick hitting the strings more so than the notation. And I think that works pretty well for Clean Flesh. I'm almost positive David Geyer used a pick. I may be wrong. Now, part of the percussive sound is due to Clean Flesh's low tuning. I forget exactly what they tuned to, but it wasn't a typical tuning. Yeah. So next up is Rotten Food. I remember this one being performed live a couple times. I believe it was also on a 3-song tape that was made in between Basement of Death and the 4-song CD. The song has like some creepy spoken word vocals and some diabolical laughter. I like it. It's pretty awesome. And next we have Suicidal Thoughts. Now I remember this one since Clean Flesh typically in their earlier days didn't have enough songs to fill up a full set. They would play Suicidal Thoughts twice during their set. It has a little bit of clean guitar. Yeah, Clean Flesh playing clean guitar. I know, it sounds kind of weird, but in this particular song, it's vaguely reminiscent of one by Metallica. It's pretty good. There's no blasting in the song. It's just, a decent bit of double bass. It's another super catchy song. I still remember how it sounded after all these years, and it was great when I turned on this demo to hear that my memory was exactly the same as I remembered it. Next, we have Living Beneath. The intro is kind of weird. There's like some knocking drum sounds. And then another sound like the sweeping of a broom almost. Something from the drum machine. And then Joe yelling at someone to hurry up, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of a weird song. But one riff in this song sounds kind of familiar to me. All right, it's story time here. Check out the riff at 2 minutes and 47 seconds in the song. I remember bringing this up to Joe in a phone conversation around 1996 or whatever, and he flipped out. That being said, I still like it. So what band, hasn't borrowed a riff from one of their mentors at one time or another? So listen to the riff at 2 minutes and 47 seconds in this song, and you tell me if it sounds familiar. Am I an asshole for saying this? Are my ears a little bit funny? Hey, you tell me what you think. But after hearing this song almost 27 years later, I think I was right the first time. But let's move on. Oh yeah, the song also has another killer guitar solo. Clean Flesh, the song, is the next one. Unless I'm mistaken, this is not anything at all like the song Clean Flesh on the 4-song CD. The only thing is it's 2 different songs with the same title, as far as I can tell. What can I tell you about this song? It's good. Next is Saturated. I remember them playing this at the Fish and Game Club in Piqua, Ohio. I saw that show with Josh Hemingway of Carved in Flesh, another good band. And he would later on to play go on to play drums for a few gigs when he was in Erotic Incisions. Now check out Carved in Flesh as well. They're from Wapakoneta, Ohio. Lots of loud percussive bass from David Geyer on this song. And next is the unmixed, unmastered version of Coprophagy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm not sure if the version that you hear here or you hear on the CD is better. I like them both. The only real difference, as far as other than the mix, is Joe's vocals. I'm pretty sure all the instruments are exactly the same, but I'm pretty sure Joe is doing a different vocal performance. I find it really hard to believe that the mix made him sound that different from this version to the one you hear on the CD. Well, whatever, they're both great. Oh, excuse me. And at the end, I guess there's a drum track for Coprophagy. And I'm not really sure why this is included. Maybe if you wanted to make your own Clean Flesh cover song. Yes, there was a band that did a Clean Flesh cover song. The band is called Wretch. And they did an album called Benoit Babyheads. Jesus Christ. All right. Next, on to my wish list and other various memories of Clean Flesh. I'm looking for the Live in Piqua recording that I mentioned earlier, had My Fantasy and Impalement of a Whore on it. Impalement of a Whore, Harold Burton, who replaced Rick Smith when Erotic Incisions was founded, swears up and down it came out later as an Erotic Incisions song. I very, very, very strongly believe that Harold is mistaken and it was originally a Clean Flesh song. I've heard 4 different versions of this, one of which clearly shows Rick Smith playing it. I'm going to get to that next. I'm looking for the 4-song MySpace video. Rick Smith uploaded 4 rehearsal recordings on his MySpace profile, which was myspace.com/extrasickrick. Now the song titles are Chunks of Clit, the other version of Impalement of a Whore, some song about menstrual blood, I forgot what the title is, and then She Comes Maggots. I remember when I first heard about that song, me and my buddies were like, Clean Flesh has a song called She Comes Maggots. And back in 1997, this was absolutely sick and over the top and, you know, worth talking about. Actually, it still is now. So, yeah, I'd like to add the 4-song MySpace video, if anybody still has that. MySpace has junked all their old data, and I don't know why it's still there. The site, I mean. I also wonder if video exists of Joe Wolf performing with Regurgitation in Cleveland when they opened up for Deicide in 1997. He only did 1 show. But Joe Wolf, in addition to that, Joe Wolf also performed 1 single song with Regurgitation in Piqua, Ohio in 1997. I believe the song he did was Rotting in the Bowels of the Dead. At the time, Brian Baxter and Dan Baker had just joined Regurgitation, and they were doing mostly stuff on the demo, the Conceive Through Vomit demo, but Dan Baker, you know, used a lot of blast beats where there otherwise would have been normal straight ahead beats or double bass beats. And I think the only song from that set that actually made it onto the album was Out of the Womb and Into the Cauldron. They had another song called Fetish for the Deteriorated, which I think had since been retitled. I'm not sure which song. Okay. So anyhow, yeah, that show, that was also the one where Lividity recorded the Show Your Tits album. So it was an absolutely epic lineup. It had Clean Flesh, it had Regurgitation, Lividity, Deaden, and I forgot who was the headliner, perhaps Internal Bleeding, maybe Dying Fetus. I'm not totally sure on that. And any live or rehearsal songs that aren't on here from either Clean Flesh or Erotic Incisions, I would so much appreciate it. Again, it's a shame this band didn't get to live up to their potential, didn't release at least 1 full length. You know, life gets in the way of so many bands, especially at the time. You know, jobs, girlfriends, money, perhaps some kids, egos, driving distance, money, and of course drugs, you know, just screwed up so many bands back then. And yeah. But anyhow, I'm just so happy to have listened to Basement of Death for the first time, to hear these songs finally in recording. Yeah, I mean, the recording quality isn't perfect, but it's the best we've got, and I'm so grateful for Steve Haas, so grateful for Burning Dogma Records. So you get your ass to Burning Dogma Records. The link is in the description, and buy this. And you tell me what you think.